What is the dark night of the soul? The dark night of the soul is a period of utter spiritual desolation, disconnection, and emptiness in which one feels totally separated from the divine. Those who experience the dark night feel completely lost, hopeless, and consumed with melancholy. The dark night of the soul can be likened to severe spiritual depression. It's a type of spiritual emergency. The concept of having a dark night of the soul has existed for a long time, and spans back to the 16th century when poet and Catholic mystic Saint John of the Cross wrote a poem entitled La noche oscura del alma, the dark night of the soul. Wrote Saint John, if a man wishes to be sure of the road he's traveling on, then he must close his eyes and travel in the dark. Traditionally, the dark night of the soul refers to the experience of losing touch with God/Creator and being plunged into the abyss of godless emptiness. The modern understanding of having a dark night of the soul, however, is not exclusively a religious one, but can often mean losing all meaning in life, feeling out of touch with the divine, feeling betrayed or forsaken by life, and having no solid or stable ground to stand on.
And so on. However, while the dark night of the soul isn't the same as regular depression, it can be thought of as spiritual depression. One of the biggest differences between the dark night of the soul's depression and regular depression is that the dark night is primarily a spiritual and existential form of crises that can't be treated or cured with therapy or psychiatry. Therefore, those of us going through the dark night can often feel an increasing sense of hopelessness, unease, and despair as we discover that no one can save us but ourselves. Inevitably, this makes us feel even more alone, frustrated, and confused about the world and about ourselves. I am intensely aware of what it is like to experience complete psychological and spiritual desolation, and although the feeling seems endless, there is a light at the end of the tunnel if you just know where to look. Here are 7 omens that you might be going through a dark night of the soul. 1. You feel a deep sense of sadness, which often verges on despair. This sadness is often triggered by the state of your life, humanity, and/or the world as a whole. 2. You feel an acute sense of unworthiness. 3. You have the constant feeling of being lost or condemned to a life of suffering or emptiness. 4. You possess a painful feeling of powerlessness and hopelessness. 5. Your will and self-control is weakened, making it difficult for you to act. 6. You lack interest and find no joy in things that once excited you. 7. You crave for the loss of something intangible, a longing for a distant place or to return home again. You can also take our free Dark Night of the Soul test to help you discover whether you're going through this experience or not. The ultimate difference between regular depression and the Dark Night of the Soul's depression is that regular depression is usually self-centric, whereas the Dark Night's depression is philosophical in nature and is accompanied by existential reflections such as why am I here? And what is my purpose? Also, when depression ends, not much changes in your life in terms of your beliefs, values, and habits. However, when the dark night of the soul ends, everything in your life is transformed, and life becomes wondrous again. Why suffering is necessary? My desire to live is as intense as ever, and though my heart is broken, hearts are made to be broken. That is why God sends sorrow into the world. To me, suffering seems now a sacramental thing, that makes those whom it touches holy. Any materialism in life coarsens the soul. Polish psychologist Kazimierz Dąbrowski once coined a term positive disintegration, which views tension and anxiety as necessary in the process of spiritual and psychological maturing. In other words, it is the friction within us that causes the mirror of our souls to be polished enough for us to glimpse our true nature. I often hear people speak of the dark night as some kind of problem they have to fix, or something they went through a long time ago, that is now over, thank God. But what these people thought was a dark night may have just been a glimpse of the darkness within them, especially when they speak egotistically about it as if it were a badge of honor. A true dark night of the soul leaves a long-lasting impact on you. It changes you completely. When you exit a dark night, you will discover that something is always taken away from you, for the better. Such as your beliefs, your perceptions, your former meaning in life, or even in rare cases, your ego. The metaphysician Ananda Kumaraswamy put it this way: no creature can attain a higher grade of nature without ceasing to exist. Have you ever seen a butterfly begin to emerge from its cocoon? It must struggle in order to strengthen its wings. If someone frees the butterfly from its cocoon prematurely, it won't be able to fly because its crucial tempering stage will not have occurred. The same is true for trees. Trees need wind in order to build their structural strength to stay upright. Your dark night of the soul is your wind, your cocoon. It is an ego death whereby you shed the ego that prevents you from embodying your soul. If you try to avoid the hard work of, as Ananda put it, ceasing to exist, or breaking down your old confining structures, you won't have what it takes to truly embody your essential nature. What is the point of living? Here's another central question and concern that emerges over and over again during our dark night of the soul. What is the point of living? Such a question weighs down on us like lead, oppressing us constantly. Each day we might obsessively search for an answer, but find to our greatest dismay that the answers to such a question are as expansive as the waves on the ocean. Some people tell us, the point is to serve God, others tell us, the point is to make a difference, and others tell us, there is no point, you make your own meaning. These are only 3 of hundreds, even thousands of possible answers. What the hell are we supposed to do? Who is right? Who is wrong? If there really is any right or wrong answer. We walk down one path and immediately become dissatisfied, disillusioned, and repelled by what we discover. Then we walk down another path and history repeats itself again and again until we realize with horror. Every path is meaningless to me, and we collapse in grief and despair, winding up at square one again. Such a cycle repeats itself over and over again during the dark night of the soul, so much so that it can become like torment. I know because I have experienced it. The strange thing is that although we get to a point of complete desolation, we still hold a glimmer of hope that pursuing the same path over and over and over again will somehow bring us to a deeply satisfying meaning one day. We seem to think that the mind is the solution to our problems, that utilizing the mind will release us from the original prison created by the mind that feels the need to quantify, measure, and define everything. What most of us fail to do, however, is to question the actual questions we are asking and pursuing the answers to. Have you ever tried asking, why must there be a point to living? Instead of, what is the point of living? I'll elaborate on this below. Happiness isn't this or that. Happiness is. Earlier today I opened my email and received a poignant message from one of our longtime readers asking, I don't understand. Why am I alive? Why do I experience life? I don't know why I am here now. I don't see the point of living my life. I don't want anything, not material, physical achievements, not relationships, not entertainment, nothing. I don't know what to do with this body, mind, and feelings. Or maybe I just experience this life too intensely until I am numbed. But why? My answer to anyone experiencing this is that although you might feel cursed, you are actually blessed. It sounds absurd, even insulting, but this is the truth. Before any true growth or healing can occur, there must be a process of destruction and complete annihilation of everything you thought would bring you happiness. Most people experiencing dark nights realize this, that nothing makes them happy anymore. Not bodily, not sexual, not emotional, not material, not political, not social, not even spiritual. And this is the start of the purification process. Conditioning versus reality. Since birth you have been conditioned to believe that money will make you happy, a sexy, rich partner will make you happy, a high IQ will make you happy, a big house will make you happy, a thriving career will make you happy, a perfect life will make you happy. But this is all a lie because whenever you pursue happiness, you are immediately losing touch with the fact that happiness is already here, right now, in this very second, without you having to do anything or question anything. Happiness is. This sounds like the most ridiculous thing you might have ever heard, and yet deep down you might sense the truth in it. If this is the case, the first layer of your illusion has been peeled away. What a blessing. A blessing in disguise. In reality, it is absolutely terrifying to have the ground beneath your feet ripped out from beneath you. And this is precisely what we experience during the dark night of the soul. And yet, this experience is the greatest teacher of all to us because it illuminates what is fragile, transient, and subject to change, growth, and decay. We are subsequently left with a feeling of great inner emptiness, but within this emptiness, we eventually come to see what can never come, go, change or die, and that is the truth of who we are, pure, peaceful, and blissful conscious essence. The mind is always frantically searching. The mind is a product of our evolutionary development, it protects us and structures our existence, and through it, we can experience the beauty of life. But in order to truly come to any closure during our dark nights, we must understand that the mind is limited, narrow and finite, and therefore so is our reasoning. Why must there be a point to living other than the experience of being alive in all of its fascinating and shocking diversity? Why must we pursue or find something rather than simply experiencing each moment fully and completely in the simplicity of being? That is why I say that happiness isn't this or that, happiness is. What exactly are we seeking when we want to answer the question, what is the point of living? We want a satisfactory answer that will appeal to the mind and give us happiness. But happiness can't be given because happiness is. This might all sound like fancy rhetoric, but I recommend that you let it sink in and really look into it more. For me it took years, but these 6 questions help to solidify the understanding that happiness and fulfillment are already here, now. Please read them to continue your journey. The dark night and the spiritual awakening process. As humans, the prospect of change is avoided and resisted because it is unknown territory. Therefore, we fear it. For this reason, we require a spiritual awakening. There are 3 ways that spiritual awakenings can occur. The first is at the hands of wise spiritual teachers, the second is through the spiritual drive of soulfully mature people, and the third is spontaneously due to life experience. Spontaneous awakenings arrive in a number of ways: a terminal diagnosis, old age, a near-death experience, a physical accident, the loss of a loved one, a romantic breakup, the destruction of your home or homeland, suicidal depression, or the complete loss of your religious faith. The dark night is a herald, an omen, of change. It lets us know that we can't continue living the way we have been living. There is no growth, no awakening in life, without first seeing and acknowledging our existing disappointment. Acknowledging our disappointment means becoming aware of the deeply held sense of incompletion that we all carry. It means becoming aware that something is desperately missing from our lives. Those that have experienced, or are currently experiencing a dark night of the soul will know that something very fundamental at a core level is out of focus or completely lacking in their lives. Those going through a dark night will sense that so much more is possible in their lives, even though they don't exactly know what that so much more is. Paradise lost and found. One of the common reasons why dark nights occur and are prolonged is due to mystical experiences, or short glimpses of the divine, which spiritual teachers often refer to as grace or samadhi. Soon afterward, the person loses this experience, and is plunged into unhappiness again. This is called the halo effect, afterglow, or what the Sufis speak of as the sobriety of union. Why does the halo effect happen? It happens because of the stark contrast between one's rediscovered divine self and the return to one's disconnected and tormented ego self. To the spiritually mature person, the halo effect sets the stage for a future encounter with the transcendental, with God. However, for the less prepared seeker, the glimpse into the divine stirs up even more distress as old habits, obsessions, thoughts, and behaviors reappear. Now, such a person realizes that he has a long, complex, and demanding task of purification and transformation ahead of him. In spiritual alchemy, there is a word for this experience called solution, putting all the hard stuff in the waters of reflection, your ideas, your habits, etc., where it dissolves and breaks apart, shows itself for what it is, and gives you the opportunity for a fresh start. Find freedom through purging. The solution to one's suffering and disconnection from the divine realm can be any method of cutting away, dislodging, disintegrating and clearing old pieces of your life so that you can begin afresh. Essentially, the dark night is a process of shedding away your old home and going in search of a new one. Understandably, this process requires a huge leap of faith into the unknown, which can come at quite a sudden and frightening pace. If you think you might be going through this journey, it's important to understand that many of us have been where you are. Many people still are. There is no map, there is only the flickering luminescence of your soul to light the way. I hope our work can encourage, embolden and support you if you are undertaking this descent into your underworld. Dark Night of the Soul meditation. While every experience of the dark night of the soul is different, the one common thread is that it is a path of initiation. You are in the dark so that you can understand what light is. You are disconnected so that you can know what connection is. You are lost so that you can find your way back home. If these explanations of the dark night don't resonate with you, please go ahead and discard of them. I'm not here to tell you what the dark night of the soul should mean, because ultimately you must figure that out for yourself. You need to be the one to make meaning out of your experience. I can only offer my own understanding. If you have read up until this point, you are probably looking for additional help, and that is completely understandable. However, the dark night of the soul is a complex and profound experience, and it cannot be solved by reading a 6-step formula or bullet list. What I can offer you, however, is a simple meditation which may provide you with some level of relief. When you can dredge up enough energy, I know how exhausting and depleting the dark night can be. Try experimenting with the following dark night of the soul meditation. Find a quiet and undisturbed place. If you like, play some celestial or ethereal music in the background to set the mood. Lie down and close your eyes. For a minute or two, focus on your breath. Feel your chest rise and fall. Once you feel connected with your body, shift your focus to creating an image of yourself walking through a dark forest. Imagine that you are looking above to see the dark tangled branches of the forest obscure the sky. What does the forest feel like? Is it cold, hot, balmy, humid, or icy? Can you smell, feel, or taste anything? As you keep walking through the dark forest, the path in front of you seems endless. The atmosphere feels deathly and melancholic. Suddenly, a white wolf emerges from the trees. It looks at you with intelligent and kind eyes and begins to accompany you as you walk. Your feeling of loneliness lifts slightly as you enjoy the company of your animal friend. Suddenly, the wolf beside you stops and stares intensely into the dark trees ahead of you. You peer ahead but cannot see anything but dark shadows. Suddenly, your wolf companion lifts up his head and lets out a loud and haunting wolf call. The hairs on the back of your neck stand up. Just after the wolf stops howling, a white light slowly emerges from deep within the forest. At first, the light is tiny and like a pinprick. But as you walk towards it, the light becomes bigger and brighter. A feeling of hope begins to fill you. Tentatively, you start jogging towards the light. You notice that the faster you run, the bigger the light gets. The closer you move to the light, the more open and expansive you feel. You pick up your pace. The feeling is exhilarating. Far behind you, the white wolf howls again. A feeling of wildness and freedom starts to warm you from the inside out. As you continue running, the light begins to consume your vision. The dark forest begins to quickly fade. As you look down, you notice that your legs are the legs of a wolf without knowing it. You have experienced a total transformation and it is liberating. Picking up your pace, you keep running and you let out a loud howl. The piercing sound of the howl dissolves all hopelessness, sadness, and darkness left within you. The howl has completely purified you. All that remains is pure light, love, hope, power, and peace. You feel spacious and open. You are free. Enjoy the feeling of freedom for as long as you wish. When you are ready, wiggle your fingers and toes and return back to the room. You may like to journal about your experience. Feel free to record this visualization, get someone to read it out to you gently, or change the meditation to your own liking. It has been created to ultimately benefit you. To end this article, I'll leave you with one of my favorite Dark Night of the Soul quotes by David Whyte, a man who understood the value of making peace with the darkness. Time to go into the dark where the night has eyes to recognize its own. There you can be sure you are not beyond love. The dark will be your womb tonight. The night will give you a horizon further than you can see. You must learn one thing. The world was made to be free and give up all the other worlds except the one to which you belong. Sometimes it takes darkness and the sweet confinement of your aloneness to learn anything or anyone that does not bring you alive is too small for you. Sweet Darkness by David Whyte. Now, over to you. What has your experience been like with the dark night of the soul? Please share below to help others not feel so alone. P.S. If you're experiencing the dark night and desperately need more guidance, see our Dark Night of the Soul journal for extra help.